Yeah, we're live. It is 6:54. I'm even early for once. How's everybody doing? This is very exciting. I was been on the phone with Jimmy a lot today. We were talking about the 5.3 liter. In fact, the thumbnail that I have up, I think that's the old motor. So Jimmy and Joel pulled the motor out of the Tahoe, and I think Jimmy's son pulled the motor out of the Tahoe because we had a cam bearing issue. The cam bearing, when they were swapping the cam to put the Truck Plus camshaft in it so we could do a bunch of testing with the Truck Plus and the turbo and stuff. When they did that, one of the cam bearings wanted to come out with the camshaft, and clang, 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 it's way down to the windage tray. Not a good situation, obviously. Not what you want to hear. I mean, that's almost worse than having a lifter fall down, because a lifter on a real high mileage car, when you're talking about the worn out lifter trays, you're like, okay, I can kind of see that. That's actually kind of expected if you don't have the tools or dowels or whatever to put in there to hold lifters up. Only really necessary on trays. And speaking of lifter trays, when we're doing this, when I say we, Jimmy, I wish I was there to help him. I love putting these things together and doing these razor blade rebuilds. It's so easy and fast and efficient. We were talking about it today. We were laughing. I'm like, look, it's not perfect. You're not rebuilding the motor, but look at what it was. Everything that you're doing can only make it better. If the rings are not moving around and you make them move around, that's better. Are they brand new rings? Is it a new bored and honed and clean block? No, it's not any of that. But what it was versus what it is, much better. So right now, he's taking the pistons out. In fact, he had at least one of them done, I think, when I was talking to him earlier today. So he's taking the pistons out one at a time, putting ring gap in it, measuring this out, 6,500 per inch of bore. He's probably, I'm sure that he is being way more conscientious about what those exact numbers are than I ever am. When I'm doing turbo LS stuff, junkyard stuff, I'm like, it's 26, it's 28, it's sometimes 30. Like the Big Bang motors were over 30. One of them was at least 35. And so I wasn't that too concerned about it, because it was something we were trying to break anyways. But even on the L33 on the 5.3 liter, I was like, we measured them and they actually all were over that. So I'm like, well, I can't add ring gap to them. So, or I can't add ring, thickness to them, take the gap away basically. So I'm just not going to worry about it. So it's fine. It's all good. But he is doing that now. He had to get another motor because I didn't want him to use that motor with the bad bearing in it. And you might be able to put another bearing in it and tap it in there and might adhere. You might be able to put an oversized bearing, but more than likely it's probably going to need some machining and to be serviced. So in my opinion, that those things are not worth it, because I could just go get another motor from a wrecking yard. As it turned out, Joel had one and got it over, and Jimmy took it apart. He's like, man, this thing is really nice. He took it apart. He goes, the bearings look perfect. The walls look perfect. And I think that this thing had 150 or 160,000 miles on it or something. So it wasn't a super high mileage one. Like we were talking about, we were laughing. It's just getting broken in. It's still got more than half of its life left. So that's all working out. So he was changing the ring gap in it. He is definitely going to put new lifter trays in it, because even though that is an expense when you're doing these junkyard motors, if we were to do more cam swaps with it, which we almost certainly will in the Tahoe, because it's a test vehicle. So we almost certainly will put the Ripper camshaft in a low buck truck, whatever. And if we have new cams coming out, maybe we'll try those as well. But he will be changing cams in this thing. So when we're doing that, what you want new trays, so that when you rotate the cam, the lifters go up and, clamp them in place. So you don't have to worry about lifters dropping in. You only have to worry about apparently cam bearings dropping in. So definitely new lifter trays. We have the head gaskets from BTR. We got ARP head bolts. He didn't have studs. The reason he didn't get studs is because we didn't think at the time that the motor was coming out. Studs or bolts in what we're doing, not really. Neither one of them is an issue, because we're not getting to the limit of the bolt or the stud. The ARP stuff is really good. It's solid, and my heart goes out to Chris's family, who passed away, who is my guy from ARP for decades, man. I'm going to miss him. He's a great guy. Even cool just to hang out with at MPMC and stuff. And play dice with and do all that stuff. It was awesome. But the ARP stuff, first rate, all of that's good. So he also already did the razor blade rebuild on the cylinder head. So, scuffed the surface, cleaned them up as best he could. I need to ask him. I forgot to ask him if he used the Easy Off, the oven cleaner stuff. That works really good on them. So you can spray a bunch of that in and spray it in the ports and stuff. And particularly the exhaust, you can clean that up. But he also did lapping compound or polishing, probably lapping compound on the valves, hit them with the drill and reseat them, particularly the exhaust valves. Those tend to be the ones that get pitted the most. Obviously, he put new seals on it too, new factory style seals, because these have beehive springs on it. Put springs on it because we're doing the cam upgrade, so he's going to use the springs that go with the camshaft. He's going to put a Truck Plus camshaft in it, and then probably also cleaned out the intake manifold, the factory truck intake manifold. We're also going to do a Trailblazer SS on there, so we got those kinds of things to test as well. His is a drive-by-wire. It's an 05 Tahoe, so drive-by-wire throttle body, so we'll be able to use that. That will all be fine, and obviously we can get that thing tuned. But then once it goes in there with this razor blade rebuilt motor with ring gap and head bolts, then it can withstand lots of power. Whether or not the 350,000 mile 4L60 can, we're going to have that in there until we get the 4L80 to replace that. When we do that, then we could like really make some rips with it. Maybe take it to LS Fest and, launch it or whatever and do some fun stuff with it. It's a really big, heavy vehicle. So we have to turn the boost up on it to do anything other than the 17 or 18 second quarter mile that it runs. I don't know what a stock one of those runs. You guys can let me know if you guys know. I don't know what a stock one of those runs. I can't imagine that a stock Tahoe, this is not a 4-wheel drive, this is a 2-wheel drive, but it's a 5.3. So I don't know what that big heavy thing would even do in the quarter. If somebody knows what a stock one does, please let me know. But you can start knocking off seconds fairly easily with boost. And the G42 works surprisingly well in there. The 3584 obviously is immediate boost response, which is good. So lots and lots of torque. I would like to try some different converters in this, or at least one different converter. I'd like to try a converter. The test that I've wanted to do for a long time, I wanted to do this with a converter company, is I wanted to run the thing stock, run it with a tune and do draggy accelerations with it, and then run it with a cam and a tune, and then run it with a converter. I'd like to do it stock with a converter and then stock with a cam and see which one of those things improves acceleration, like 0 to 60 or 1/8 mile or quarter mile, whatever number that we pick. Which one of those helps more? I'm curious to see if the 50, 60, 75 horsepower, depending on which cam we pick, if that, because it's happening at such higher RPM, if that helps more than the converter. So in fact, that's going to be our poll today. I'll ask you guys, see what you guys think. This is important. Okay, well, a 2800 stall converter with a stock cam, using just doing a converter swap with a stock cam, improve like 1/8 mile times more than a cam swap. Let me know what you guys think. Curious to see. But at any rate, Jimmy's got that stuff going back together. The heads will go back on with the head bolts and the new BTR head gaskets. It already has our injectors and our pump in it. And then we could, with this motor combination now and our G42 turbo, with that kit, we could get to beyond we think what our single pump will do. So then at that point, we have to look at a dual pump or just putting a boosted pump on it, for at least for right now for our testing. So we're working on that. The other thing, and we're going to be talking about this on another night for another live feed, is Jimmy did some tests. We're working with a sensor company, and we're doing some comparisons on sensors for how fast they react, basically. The one that I'm interested in, after seeing our data on before and after on the intercooler temperature or temperature sensors using the factory GM sensor, it's awful. it's not nearly fast reacting enough. And Jimmy just did an interesting test, so I'm trying to figure out, we're gonna do a video on it, but he did a test comparing the response rates, the time to temperature, basically using a heat gun, of how long it took for the thing to heat up to a known temperature. Like how long did it take to go from, let's say, 75, 80 or 90 degrees, whatever ambient was, up to this, like, let's say 200-degree mark. How long did it take for both of those sensors to get there? The temperature was already there. The question is, how long did it take the sensor to indicate the correct temperature? So that's interesting stuff. So that will be kind of cool. Because when we were doing the testing, and I was asking Jimmy, okay, what kind of temperature drop are we seeing? And he was telling me the numbers. I'm like, that can't be right. There's no way that's right. that can't. Well, that's what I said. Well, I know, but I said, what I'm telling you is the sensor, I don't think, is giving you the accurate data, because I know how much temperature increases, because having tested it intercoolers before and after and stuff, for 30 years or whatever. I've done lots of that. And so I know about where it is. And even with the ones I've tested on, I'm not certain that the temperature change that I'm getting over the runtime that we're seeing it at, I don't know that it might stabilize at an even higher temperature. It wouldn't surprise me if it would. But I'm seeing more than we saw when Jimmy was data logging this stuff. And it's not because he wasn't doing the thing exactly right. He was. It's just that the sensor is really, really laggy. It doesn't show what the actual air temperature is. And so it's interesting that the factory ECU is relying on that, is relying on that temperature data that's almost non-existent unless it's sustained for quite a while. Like, it takes it a while to get to 200 degrees, let's say. So that's interesting. So we'll be doing more on that. What else we got going on? Oh, and one of the other things we'll be talking about later on this week is we're going to be talking about the exhaust manifold for the turbo kit. So we're going to have a poll on that as well. So it'll be good. So it'll be good stuff. Lots of good stuff. Let's see what you guys got going on. I'm excited about that, because it's like putting a fresh motor in there. It's not fresh. It's a factory fresh, but it's kind of fresh, It's and so it will definitely be ready for some fun. Let's say. Jordan, Aaron, what's going on? Turbo time. Turbos are we got the G42. We got some unusual ones that we bought too, because we wanted to test. We got some G40s, or at least I know at least one. G40 1150. So that should be, if somebody's wanting something in between there, that's a pretty good piece there. Good evening, Brian. What's going on? Ben, crate motor incoming. You want a crate motor, or you want us to do a crate motor? I like boost, and I like big boost, and I cannot lie. I just bought a 2012 Ford F-150 XLT with a Raptor motor. Cylinder number 8 has a misfire. I was told it could be the plugs or coil, or worse, it could have a broken valve spring. All of those are fairly easy to fix, as long as it's not a broken piston. That's a bad thing. But my guess is it's something smaller than that. The 5-liter Coyote motors were known for valves to tulip in the head, require the head to be removed. I haven't heard of that. Going with the truck Norris cam. If that question is for me, I've done lots of testing of the truck Norris cam, and it works excellent. You can see lots of videos up. The guys at BTR are nothing but fantastic, particularly Brian, who I've known for decades. So that's a good cam. If you're using it, it should work well. My 08 F-150 still moves out with the original 4.6 original computer. Ask up when the check engine light. up, making the transhift hard, clear the code, and the transhift select new. Codes for the evac system. Any converter with a G42 would be magical. Yeah, the G42 is surprisingly in that Tahoe. Maybe it's because how much load it has, but it's, and I'm not also sure what gears his Tahoe has. If it has a tow package, if it's got 4 series gears in the back, I don't know. I have to ask them. I don't remember asking him about that. But the G42 works way better than I thought it was going to in the vehicle. Like I said, on a 6-liter, it would be my choice. It would be my choice over the 3584 because it works so well even on the 5.3. And if I was a 5.3 looking for 700, 800 in the 800 range, I would put a G42 in it. Because I would, if I was going to 800, I'd be going more than that. Google says 05 Tahoe 2-wheel drive 5.3 runs a mid 15 second at 90. I don't think I'm buying that. 8th is more about launch with a 60-foot, a big enough cam. I think you can back half the track and make up for a soft launch. No substitute to make it easy. Dang, now I got to guess. No absolutes. No, I didn't put any absolutes in there. Does it always do this? 2000 Tahoe 1650, 0 to 60, 8.55. Yeah, this is an 05. I think I screwed up. I just built a 5.3 with 10.5 to 1 compression, 853 heads. Here's the screw up, 226, 226. Predicting it's going to be way too rowdy. Joe, I don't know what you're trying to get done with this. So what are you trying to achieve? The single pattern cam's not what I would have picked. And then depending, if you told me what your goals were, I could help you maybe steer you to a different kind of camshaft. I mean, that camshaft will go in there and it will work and it will drive around. It's a single pattern cam, so it's not going to be as rowdy as having a dual pattern cam with a 111 on it. Weirdly, a 6202 feels like it would run 16 because it's busy fiddling with the 10-speed. Yeah, maybe the later ones. The later ones are definitely, a 6.2 is definitely way more powerful than an LM753. An L33, 7875 stock cam, 300 stall. Coming from a stock one, stall is awesome. I bet that's good, and particularly with that turbo, which would probably want converter. I'd run pinks with my 08 Ford with a 4.6. You think a stock 4.6 2-valve would beat a 5.3 Chevy that makes 100 more horsepower? 25 ZR2, which is Chevy's wannabe Raptor TR6. Building an LQ4 with 243 heads, 040 head gaskets, negative 3 cc pistons, top cranking rods, carb, dual plane with all the accessories. My guess is 450 horsepower. What stall converter? What camshaft do you have in this? You better have a pretty good sized camshaft if you're wanting 450 horsepower from that. I take that back. It's not going to have to be that big. I forgot I was talking about a 6-liter. 6-point rolling in my 6.0. Cathedral port. Okay, Truck Plus. Okay, so yeah, we were at 464. And we even had 317 heads, and you got much better heads than that. Yeah, you'll be good. If you have a camshaft in there, you'll be good. I think 2800 is probably fine for that combo. When are the kits coming out? I don't know yet. We're still working on that. A converter will help 60-foot, but a 4L 60E won't handle the extra hit for long, so no real benefit to a converter unless the trans is built. And chance you'll be offering something similar to a Comp 459 on the website? No, probably not. We probably won't have a cam that big. That's not really a very big seller. Check out the Transgo HD2 reprogramming kit. Lots of people run it. Figured I'd try it, and it works flawlessly. $158 for the 4L80. Okay. Is it a controller? Or is it a reprogramming deal? Oh, it's a sloppy stage 2. Okay, yeah, that should make 450 at least. I don't know about the thing that I'm worried about now is the dual plane. The dual plane is not going to make as much power as the truck manifold that we ran, but you should be close to that. What about a 6.2 Raptor motor versus a 6-liter LS? I don't know what years those are and what 6-liter you're talking about. I don't know what the rating is for the Raptor motor. Isn't it kind of a hopped up one from Ford? And isn't it like a special edition kind of thing? I've maxed out my manual boost controller. I'm afraid the big block is going to fall out if I go any further. Aftermarket sensors react fairly quickly and are not super expensive. Yeah, definitely better than the factory GM air temp sensor. Is a sloppy cam designed for junk cam bearings? Well, the thing about the factory cam bearings is they're all like that. From the factory, they hone the bearings. So they install the bearings and then hone it and then put the cam in. And so they actually cut the bearings. So when you see them, that's the way that they were. It's not that they've worn out. Ford 6.2 is 1122, 380 horsepower in an F250, 400 in a 150. Is the 6.2, does it make more power than the Coyote, than the 5-liter in like an F-150? 6.2 truck around 411 and a Mustang around 480. A 6.2 was never offered in a Mustang though, right? Well, a 5.3 with a single turbo and stage 2 BTR cam and 90-pound injectors should be pushing horsepower wise. Whatever the turbo is capable of. So whatever turbo you select, that's how much power that can make. The turbo decides that. So if you put 1,000 horsepower turbo on it, that combination can make 1,000 horsepower. 90-pound injectors, you're going to be on gas. You could get there like on race gas. I don't know that you could quite top out 1,000 horsepower turbo on 90-pound injectors of the E85. It would be pretty right on the edge. Pearl 80 shift kit HC2, they call it for reprogramming. Okay. 5.3 beats a 6.2 Raptor, so I doubt those numbers are correct. Yeah, I didn't think that they ever put a 6.2 in a Mustang, so I was a little confused about that. The LS3 makes similar power to the first-gen Coyote in bolt-on trim. The LT1 makes similar power as the third and fourth-gen Coyote in bolt-on trim. I don't compare modified ones. I just look at the stock ones and see how they do. And then after you start modifying them, then it's just a matter of what mods are you going to do to each one of the. It was the same horsepower as the original Coyote, but 2,500 RPM sooner. After the 3.5 twin turbo came out and wasn't offered in the 150 anymore. Okay. I don't know how much the bigger stall helped my van because every time I went to a higher stall, I put in a bigger camshaft. Well, that's what you're supposed to do, right? They're supposed to step both of those up. So interesting. Will a 2800 stall converter with a stock cam improve 8th mile times more than a cam swap? 52% are saying no. They're saying that the cam is. Is there better, faster thermocouple than the Type K? The Type K is not bad. I don't know if the GM one, what that is. If it's an insulated Type K. I use a Type K and had for years with a digital readout on it, and it was actually fairly fast reacting. Not as slow as the factory GM was for some reason. the gold for this 5.3 installing it. My 72C10 for the weekend truck meets and be completely drivable with a 2600. Just did a cam at 140,000 miles, 6.2. Measured cam bearings and number 1 and number 3 were about 6,000s bigger up and down compared to side. I looked, I replaced. There you go. I wanted to copy your 408 LQ4, but don't want to get a 4L80 because it doesn't fit in my El Camino without cutting. Uh-oh. I know 84 150 with a 4.6 will still do 100 miles an hour, but then begins to shake. Feels like an unbalanced drive shaft. That Bernard, that's one of the problems with these big trucks and the SUVs also, is that getting enough power is really not that big a deal, but getting the drivetrain to handle the new speed potential, it can be a problem. Your test of stock versus cam turbo could be done on a stick for real world testing. I don't know what you mean by that. The thing that I was talking about before was a stall converter. I want to see if a stall converter changes acceleration more than the camshaft does. I don't know what the manual transmission thing that you're talking about, I don't know where that plays in to that scenario. Hummer H2 408, Texas speed, 225 heads, 10.5 to 1, LSXRT, GM, 87mm throttle body, 220, 230. Tell me where I screwed up. Well, the thing that I would say is that you haven't put boost on it yet, right? Otherwise, that's fine. I don't know what you're trying to achieve with that. I'm guessing by that camshaft that maximum power is not what you were trying to do there. Because then otherwise you would have gone with a bigger cam. Because a 220, 230 cam is not a maximum kind of cam. It would be a lot of things that a 2800 stall converter would trump a cam. Measure the time the vehicle is at or above stock cam torque with and without a cam. It's a landslide. I don't know what I would be a lot of things that a 2800 stall converter would trump a cam. I don't know what that, not sure what you're trying to say there. I would bet. Okay. I think 0 to 60, I'm pretty certain that the converter wins. In an eighth, though, I don't know if we don't get more of a chance to have the extra power of the cam shine. In the quarter, I think the cam wins. But I think that the shorter we make that distance, the better it is for the converter. Aaron, all that's fine then. You did all that good. It's a 408, 225 heads. Those are good. 10.5 to 1, that's good. LSXRT, I'm assuming that this is a cathedral port deal, so that's really good. That throttle body's fine. It doesn't match the throttle opening in the manifold. A 102 or 105 does that, but that's probably fine. Especially, with a 220 cam, that's probably fine. Oh, that's good. Friend burned up 3 6L80s with the Whipple supercharged 5.3. He doesn't like to race after installing a third transmission. Best time was 11.8. Truck Plus and Spring Kit came in this past week. Nice. Somebody needs to make a critical speed t-shirt so we can spot. Factory Silverado and Tahoe drive shafts have no issues to 141. Bold statement. Too big of a cam, you end up running the same time with the cam, but with more mile an hour in the quarter. Scott, what's up? Scott is out. I don't know. Richard, you take a look at the CFD aerodynamic video for the Turbo Sprint to help with your top speed? No, I take a look at all of the actual top speed testing that I've already done, and the power output, and all of the Bonneville data that I have versus power output. Have a pretty good feel for what it needs. And I don't want a limited slip. I want an open diff, definitely. No limited slip for that. Not trouble putting power down where we are going to need to put power down, because you don't need power in first gear. You don't need power in any of the lower gears, because it's not a drag race. It's just top speed. Just all we need is to make better than 250 at the tire would be nice. That would just make it happen. Try turning off the autofocus of your webcam. Yeah, I can't do that. I even tried putting another camera that it was a non-autofocus camera that was a fixed camera, but it didn't work out very well. Did you bring any guest speakers on? Yeah, AFR guys I talked to, but I could try to get Keith on. That would be good. I like Keith. You have to upgrade the converter injectors of the Truck Plus. You don't have to upgrade the converter on the 6-liter. You don't. Silverado 6-liter 4L80 all stock. No, you're good. You do have to do a spring kit though. Cam versus stall equals good 60 versus top end. I guess if slicks are involved, stall might be better. Might be opposite on street tires. I don't think with the Tahoe that traction is going to be an issue. Certainly not with a stock motor and a stock cam. Traction is not going to be a problem. You can do cam and springs. You're going to need more fuel though, Boost Boy. More than stock. AOD transmission, 323 gear, Porta GT40 heads. What cam duration for extended highway travel? Well, for extended highway travel, you could just leave the stock cam in it, right? But you're obviously wanting more power, right? I did extended highway travel everywhere I went with that 224, 232 cam that I had in my Mustang. But that's not for everybody. Does a 480 slip all the time under 2800? No. Because you're not applying all the power to it under cruise. And you have a lockup converter. Sign me up for a sprint cam when you get them made. The first regrind is already done. I might try others though. On the car, I want a lot of torque in the mid-range because I'm scared to rev past 6,000. Hit the thumbs up, everyone. Escalade limiter at 90 miles an hour. It's easy. I don't have to worry about the drive shaft flying out. Flex fuel injectors off an 08 Yukon 6-liter gen. If there are flex fuel injectors, yeah, we sell those. But if you can get them from a wrecking yard and you can get them inexpensive, you can get the 50-pounders. Those will work. Stall is going in the Tahoe. Maybe not braking traction. Yeah, I don't think Jimmy has a trouble braking traction, and even in my Silverado, I don't really have that. In the Tahoe case, I believe it will be faster with a converter because it will be. Yeah, we're not doing boost in this scenario. Will a 2800 stall converter with a stock cam improve quarter mile times more than a cam swap? That none of this is boosted. This is all, and that question is all NA. Is it worth me pulling my Summit LS Stage 2 cam, putting a Truck Norris with upgraded springs and rods in my 5.3, or just stick with it, waiting on a Tahoe turbo setup? Just stay with what you have. That's fine. That's a decent cam. The Summit stuff is good. I don't think you get enough from doing that cam swap to justify doing that cam swap. 275 is entry-level highway and land speed record gearing. The Sprint is 3 series. Even the lowest gear, most of the Sprint stuff is 4 series, but or I should say Sprint Metro stuff is 4 series. The one that I'm getting is the one that I have is 352. Turn off the speed limiter on my Silverado. Got a ticket going at 109. Yes, I want performance. I was thinking comp 262. Yeah, that's probably a good choice. You'd better look up the critical speed of those drive shafts. 141 miles an hour. Ain't no way an 88-inch drive shaft isn't exceeding the critical speed. Going to miss out on your webcast soon because I drive school bus and I had to be up at 5 a.m. Uh-oh. But be safe out there, man. Pearl 60 stall recommendations for a 5.3, 226 cam. A 2800 is what I would recommend. Richard, did you ever figure out why the latest L2 with the HEI was down in power from your previous one? I have not yet. I haven't tried to run that thing again. I do want to run it again because I want to run it with boost now. Actually, what I want to run it carbureted, and to make sure that like that hokey EFI setup. I'm worried about the EFI setup the way I have it with that provision for the distributor the way that I have it. I'm worried about that loading the camshaft and burning the bearings up. We did have an issue before with that. So I don't want to do that to this one. Did I hear you just say the factory flex fuel 6.2 injectors are 50 pounds? I don't know if it's the 6.2. There are 50-pound flex fuel GM injectors. We know because we sell them, but I don't remember what application they came on. Mike, I'm late again. Been training for a 5K to run with my son. I'm not a runner, but that's good. You're out doing stuff with your son. That's the important thing, not the running. Have you ever heard of or used the Vulcan O-ring head gaskets? I have not. I've never done any O-ring things on my stuff. I haven't ever been at a level where that's really necessary. I didn't even use back in the day. They had the Felpro Ford wire lock ones that you cut the receiver groove in for. We never even use it. We just use 1011 2s on everything. L96 6 liter is 50 pound. L94 6.2 is 54. I have both. Injector heights are different. Okay. We measured our injectors. They work on both the Trailblazer SS and that rail and the standard truck and that rail. Would you consider doing more big block Chevy builds? Do you mean doing more big block Chevy testing? Is Ripper Jr. a good mild version of the low buck truck camshaft? Yeah, it is. It works really good. It's really for people that want a better idle quality. It doesn't have quite the low speed power that because the truck or the low buck truck is a much more modern cam design. So it's a little bit better, but it's also more expensive than the Ripper Cam is. And the Ripper Cam still gets you an extra 50 horsepower, which is good, and has a better idle. So those things are really more what people want. If you're running a turbo, that's the camshaft that I would get because you can make all the power that you want with the turbo. £50 6 liter injectors are the same height as a 30-pound regular Gen 4 truck injector. And are those the same as a 25-pound Gen 3 truck injector? Richard, have you seen an eBay OBX supercharger? I have seen them on display, if that's what you mean. If it has 410s, I think the cam only will win. If it has 342s and the stock cam with the 2800 stall will win. You think the 410s will already be enough of an advantage and enough of a multiplier that it will get off the line well enough? Obviously, the tune has to be spot on for both of those as well. That's very important. But right now, we're 54% no. You tested a 6267 a while back and mentioned drive pressure was getting high as boost level increased. The RHP 800 is a similar spec turbo. Does drive pressure get really high on the RHP? I don't know what you mean by really high. That on any size turbo, when you're, especially smaller ones, when you're trying to max them out, back pressure is going to be high. It has to be. It can't be anything else. And I don't mean high. I just mean it's going to be like if you test any factory turbo, it's going to be 2 to 1 at a minimum of back pressure to boost pressure. But they do that specifically so that you get really, really good response. And so that's what we did with the 3584. The 6267 right now, I think if that's the turbo that I'm thinking of, I think that that's on Jimmy's NSX right now. And it makes really good power on there because it's only a 3.5 liter motor. But the 3584 was like 2 to 1, I think. But again, that's by design. The Multec 2 Delphi 24 is almost the same height. It's like 1 or 2 millimeters difference. Yeah, no, it worked. We ran them both in the injectors and the rails and stuff. There are plenty of vehicles that went 150 or more with a stock drive shaft and U-joints, launch in the joints and the twisting of the yoke off at 1 MP is the critical speed. Since I broke my 6-liter doing autocross, would you recommend going to a 243 heads or dome piston with 317 heads? In your recommendation, I would just changing the heads a lot easier than changing the pistons. And the 243 is also a better head. You'll get more from that than you will just from the compression with a 317 head. So that's the way that I would go. Because the chamber on the 243 is not just smaller than a 317, it's better. I've run 0681s, 30-pound EV6s in an early rail. It worked fine. Okay. Yeah, there's a bit of wiggle room there for what will work and what won't work. And then it depends on, I can't remember on the intake manifolds if the receiver holes for the injectors in the intake manifold, if they have a shoulder to stop the injector from going too far. Like the rail, the steel ones with the bells on them, those obviously do. It can't go up past the opening in that bell. And then also they have the little slide-on injector retainers so that if it didn't go all the way down and seat itself at the bottom, so that it was kind of locked in place. Because otherwise, if you don't have that clip in there, the fuel pressure will push the injector down. And if it can push it too far, it'll push it down past the opening in the bell mouth and it'll just spray fuel all over. We've had that happen with some of the fast billet rails because the way that they machine their rails, the amount of depth in the rail that the injector and O-ring have to go in is almost nothing. They need the injector to be able to go way in, and it's very, very little. And so it allows the injector to easily pop out. It's one thing I don't like about some of those rails. Stock turbos on production cars have a bunch of cats and mufflers that add to back pressure, I think. Yes, but even unencumbered of any of that, a stock turbo is sized to be ultra responsive. So the back pressure has nothing to do with that. If you got rid of all that and just had an open exhaust, the size of the turbo, the hot side and the cold side, because they don't want to put 1,000 horsepower turbo on something that's only designed to make 150 or 200 horsepower. What they want, because they know what the people want, what their audience wants or their consumer wants, is immediate boost response. Way more than peak power. They want immediate boost response because they want their smaller turbo motor to drive like a bigger non-turbo motor. That's what most of the people want. It's the length of the drive shaft that matters. Agreed. Because the drive shaft wants to go like this. Yes, you can do that at home. It's super fun. Pickups have long drive shafts, but what do I know? I only race cars that went 200. And you like talking with Brian on testing LS3 Monster 317 heads. I haven't mentioned that to him yet. He may have already tried those. Most videos are high horsepower and large cubic inch, so it's hard to see what works when I'm first starting racing a 454 big block Chevy. Power Nation has good videos on this, but isn't the greatest. What is it you want to see on a big block that I haven't already done on a big block? Because you might not have seen all the videos that I have up. Well, 96 6-liters have the flex fuels. I just sold 2 of the RHB 800s to 2 different friends, one on a Silverado and the other on a C6 autocross car. Yeah, for, like I said, you choose the turbo for the power output that you want, and then the response. Because if you want 1,000 horsepower, you can't have 1,000 horsepower and immediate response unless the motor that you're putting it on is already a big motor that has lots of power NA and lots of displacement. So it has lots of response for the turbo for a 1,000 horsepower turbo, because a 1,000 horsepower turbo now is going to respond like it would be much smaller because you have a bigger motor. But if you have a 4.8 or a 5.3 and you put a 1,000 horsepower turbo on it, getting it to be responsive, is harder than putting a smaller turbo on there and getting that to be responsive. If that makes sense. People ask me why I only ever run OE rails. Thank you for giving me justification. Yeah, they're not all like that. They're not all bad. But there are some, and we've had fuel issues on the dyno before. So we haven't heard any good or bad about the supercharger. I don't know anything about it other than I've seen it. I want more boost. That's good. I want to feel the boost throw you in the back seat as you come on. Yeah, that's torque, and so that's what immediate boost response does. Anyone have general recommendations on starting point for ignition timing curves on a 331? I know a lot of variables impact this. Currently, I did 2 Blue Springs that have it all in around 2,800. That's fine as long as you have the octane for that. We usually do on an MSD per Brule, a black bushing, 1 blue, and 1 silver spring. I don't want spool above 4,500. It's okay if it's a K series Honda and it goes to 8,500, because then it'll have gearing for that too. Got an LC953 BTR red hot cam long tubes. Turn between boosting or doing intake and heads to keep it stout NA. What I can tell you is one of those will get more power. The other one will get 2 or 3 times more power. So it depends on how much power you want. And if you're doing that, I would go to a smaller cam in a 5.3. Richard, are your turbo kits out yet? They are not. Is it dark or light silver? I did the black bushing as well. It's the lighter of the 2 springs. I think it's a light silver one. Been doing data logging all week with my truck on E85 with the upsized stock injectors. I want to see the tuned duty cycle difference. Cool. Dan, that's probably why they also put limiters on them, right? To stop that. That's probably the critical speed that they're worried about. So a little more conservative now. Okay. When will your kits be ready, and where will we find them? Well, you'll find them on our at our store, but I don't know what the date is for them yet. Sure, 36 pounds is enough for a 5.3 on 85, but not sure 50 is enough for my LS2. 50-pound injectors, if you don't have boost, will support 800 horsepower. If you have boost, obviously less. It will be less. I was hoping I'd find the kit on my doorstep. That would be nice. Any idea about twin turbos? What did you want to know about twin turbos? Having drive shaft coming up through the floor, pole vaulting the car tends to ruin the day. I've dropped a drive shaft, but luckily it broke in the back and went out. And we ran it over. It's not cool. How good is injector data on 1,000 cc's? It's spot on. They're FICs, yeah. And it's dead on. That's one of the reasons that we went with those. For all the tuners out there. Max out 50-pound injectors on 6 pounds on a 6-liter Silverado. 50%. See, 400 would be 600. 500 would be 750. But must have been on E85, I'm thinking. When you're maybe getting the mirror twins, when you get them, if at all. We just sold one of the mirror image turbos. Somebody called in for it. I don't know if Jimmy has any more there or not. I'm saying 50 pounds to E85. Right now the truck is at 61% on 36 pounds with full bolt-ons and aggressive tune. Okay. Do you have a sticker and any merchandise for my race car? We do have stickers now. Tell my friend getting one of the RHP 800s to get a set. Yeah, I have to find out from Jimmy if there are any more of the mirror image. I know that there was one. I know somebody bought it. Yeah, 36s will take you past 500 with gas. I think it's insane that I hit 70% duty cycle on Deutsch for 660s on my little 1.4-liter Cruise. When you're selecting a cam, let's say on an LS cam, it will match better with the extra mods, headers, and intake, or do we have to see them as individual parts to match for the best? Well, what you have to do is your best bet is to tell me how much power you want to make, and I can tell you what it takes to make that power because I'm sure that I've tested it. You're not trying to match a cam to those other things other than possibly having, if you put a really big camshaft in it, you're probably going to want an intake manifold that also wants to run at that engine speed. And if you're going to run at that engine speed to try to make power, you are going to have enough head flow to also make that happen. But you can run really good cylinder heads with a mild camshaft. That works just fine. They don't have to be matched together. The headers don't have to be matched. You can put headers on any combination from a stock all the way up to any kind of camshaft that you could put in there, and they will still work. They will still add power. You turned everyone's nightmare of never-ending questions into the whole community here on YouTube. Now time you spend here for us. No, this is what I like. This is what I want people. I wish more people came so that they could get questions answered. Love the video and all the comparisons. I haven't lost a drive shaft, but I have twisted the front yoke twice on the splines on a 45. Oh, when you're drag racing, right? That's from twist. Mine broke from not servicing the U-joints. And it being a 1977 crew cab dually that we were towing a big trailer with. And it was not at all happy. Not at all happy. I would like to have something with a turbo LS, like my Mustang. That's right. Takes probably 12 to 1500 horsepower to get a truck to go 150 miles an hour on the quarter. Personally witnessed a long bed Silverado with interior go 147 or more. Big block on a lot of bottle stock drive shafts and rear end. So now not only did it go 150, but now it did it in the quarter with a stock drive shaft. Somebody's racing something that makes that much power with a stock drive shaft? That doesn't seem right. Now with you testing sensors, will that be part of the Turbo Tahoe package? I don't know what you mean. Will the sensors be that? The sensors, we'll make the sensors available. We got them so that we could make sure that our test data was accurate on the dyno. But we could make we could sell those as well. BTR versus Texas Speed versus yours for cams, very close. If you're talking about specific cams, not in general cams, if you're talking about I'm assuming you're talking about a Truck Norris versus a Lobot truck versus a Chupacabra. All of those make very, very similar power. You'll see that there's a big price difference, though. I typically race on sand. He made 3 or 4 passes at the stop on slicks. I apologize. I missed a few minutes. Do you see my super chat? Yeah, I answered that. I don't know what the difference is between those LT1s. I have no idea. Any information on the air to water kit on the Tahoe? Saw if it's covered somewhere. We don't have kits available yet. There's only one of those in existence right now. It's on the, well, it's not on the Tahoe right now. No, he probably took it off during the cam swap. We're just getting stuff reproduced. How do you improve torque on a big cam? You don't. I mean, the big cams, it's a myth that bigger cams don't make the same amount of torque as smaller cams. They do. Particularly with LS motors, they'll usually make the same peak torque. Like if we compare a Lobot truck camshaft to a Truck Plus camshaft, or even a bigger one than that, the peak torque number might be very, very similar within a couple of foot-pounds. It's just that it happens later. And so there'll be a loss in low-speed torque at some point. There'll be a crossover. Like if you compare the Lobot truck camshaft to the Truck Plus camshaft, they cross over at 5,000 RPM. Below 5,000, the Lobot truck makes more power, makes more torque, makes more horsepower too. They're the same thing. Above that, the Truck Plus makes more. So, but they make about the same peak torque number. So one of them, if you look at it and just said, hey, look, the Truck Plus cam makes the same torque, but more horsepower. Wouldn't you want that? Well, you may not, because you may be more concerned about what's happening below 5,000 RPM than you are about these peak numbers. So it's misleading. So like I said, that's why I go by all of this data that I have generated, so I can get people what they want, what they really want. I can get them a better choice. $52 no on the stall converter. We got cam, guys. I want to run a turbo on the LT1. I want to run one on the V6, the 4.3 liter, and then also on the Dodge. Periodically, somebody in social media brings up the fact that high pressure fills. So is it vacuum, high pressure and vacuum, or is it being drawn? Yeah, I don't get into that argument, because that's like people arguing about whether or not a 400M should be called a 400M, or whether a Pontiac 455 is a big block or not. They're arguing about esoteric things, and it's not important. What was your first car? My first car was a 70.5 split bumper Rally Sport Camaro. Just picked up an Escalade with an L94. Is it pressure pushing in, or is it vacuum sucking in? Doesn't matter. It's filling. It's doing the right thing. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's doing what God and nature intended, if he has control over that, or if he just farms that out. With 2800 stall converter with a stock cam improve 8th mile times more than a cam swap. How many dyno trucks do you have saved? Thousands and thousands. I don't have charts saved. I can access charts, but I have all of the dyno runs. And so I can bring up the run and then, using that software, create a chart. I don't have the chart saved. We're naturally aspirated when we breathe. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm underwater when I'm riding the bike and going up hills. I don't feel like I'm naturally aspirated anymore. I feel like I'm less than that. Why do you want to know what file format it is? That all of that data will not be provided to somebody if that's where you're going. Do you know anything about valve stem seals on a small block Chevy? I know there are tons of information online, but if you know what kind of works best, if you happen to know what type of seals were on your test motors, it depends on which test motor you're talking about. If it's a small block Chevy, depends mostly on what kind of head it has. And so how it was prepared. Does it have a nylon seal? Does it have a Viton seal? Does it have a stock seal? Does it have an umbrella seal? I mean, it could have any of those depending on what cylinder head it was. And then what size is the OD of the guide and what size is the stem, basically. There's a lot of different variations there. What does Urson Cam's TQ camshaft series say for increased low end torque? 20 says 2400 peak, 40 says. I don't know what any of those mean. I don't them saying that 2500 or 2800 or 3200 doesn't mean anything to me, because you can't call out numbers like that without having every other variable. You have to the power output that you're applying to that converter will definitely have a function of the stall speed. So if you have a stock inline 6-cylinder and you have that converter, you're probably not going to get those stall speeds. If you have a hopped up GTX 3584 RS turbo on a 400-inch motor that will see 10 pounds at 2500, you're not going to have a 2500 stall on that because the power output is going to affect that. So that's what I mean. And the other thing that goes along with that is people quote these things to me all the time in the cam catalogs that, oh, this cam says it's from 1500 to 6400 or whatever. I'm like, yeah, it's not. And that's not a thing. I mean, the motor will rev in that RPM range, but a cam is not effective in that RPM range other than it makes the valves go up and down in that RPM range. But if it's a 230 cam, it's going to be shifted higher. It's a 220 cam, slightly lower, 210, 20 something, all of that. But usually they way overestimate that so they could get more customers for that camshaft. Have you seen metal reinforced positive seals on exhaust and a different kind on intake? I don't know if from the factory ones. Usually the seals have, like the nylon seals, have a spring around the seal part that goes over the valve. And so it adds tension basically there. So it keeps the seal working on the valve. Usually the bottom portion of that is just designed to adhere to the OD of the guide. So it holds it in place. And this other thing is like the scraping motion. T Performance has a low profile air to water cooler, fits in the intake. Yeah, I have that. We've run that on a bunch of things. So we'll close out our poll. We got one more minute. Will a 2800 stall converter with a stock cam improve 1/8 mile times more than a cam swap? 54% saying no, they think cam. They think cam is winning there. Do you have any experience with fiddling with VVT? Only on some factory deals that we ran. I did it on the LT motor, and we did it on the Coyote also. And VVT works like we would expect it to. What else do we do it on? The Atlas motor too. We did it under boost and we did it NA. And playing with variable cam timing has an effect on power. My parents had a 70 Camaro. I grew up riding in the drive up. Yeah, I was the youngest of the 3 kids. Yep, that guy's got to sit in the middle. Those seats, even for just 2 people, are terrible. Although I did spend time in those at the drive-in. So, you're young and imaginative. That all works. Drive-ins were awesome. How do you feel about Trick Flow Super 23 175 heads versus the bigger 195 heads for small book Chevy 350? Both flow better than stock, of course, but the 175 has 56 EC chamber for more compression. What is the desired power output? What are you trying to feed? I think on a 350, I would pick 195 heads. The 175 heads are usually the ones that we pick for 305s. But either one of those are going to be better, like you said, than any of the stock heads. And if you want more compression from the smaller chamber, you can go that way. You could also mill the 195s if you wanted to do that. And on that note, it is time to go. Thank you guys for showing up. Make sure to go check out the sales, richardholderperformance.com, and I will be back tomorrow. Good time, good time. Good live feed, good live feed.